treasure seekers. This is Blake coming to you live from New Mexico, and joining me as always from Washington State, it's Bryn and Cody. How's it going, guys?
Hello, friends. I feel like
Surviving
we have
the
so much to talk about this episode.
surviving the technical difficulties. Sorry for the
Yeah.
delays, everybody.
Do you feel
That's okay.
confident that it's recording right now?
I do.
Do you?
Yes.
All right. As Bryn said, we have a lot to talk about. I'd hate to do the whole thing twice.
Agreed. We'll hope.
So, if everyone's listening to this episode, all went well.
Exactly. Have a little faith. Have a little faith, Cody.
Yes.
Make it make
Well,
sense.
since the last time we put out an episode, we have some exciting news. We went on a little trip, not boots on the ground, unfortunately, but we took a trip to take our first. Anybody want to spill the beans on what we did?
I don't even know where you're going with it.
You have to spill the beans. There's so many activities that we did.
The three of us competed in our first
Oh, yeah.
speed puzzle race, speed jigsaw puzzle race. Um, we did okay. Do one of you want to say what place we got?
We got first place out
Oh
of
yeah, we got first
first
place.
place out of 6 teams.
You bet we did.
We have many hobbies.
I have to say, it was stressful. That really, that really got my heart pumping doing the puzzle race.
Really, I actually didn't ask you after if it was stressful or not because I didn't feel too much apprehension actually.
No, I was having fun the whole time.
Well, it was fun, but didn't you feel like competitive?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, maybe stress isn't the right word. I felt very competitive and like there was a lot of pressure to be getting those pieces in to beat the other teams.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. Stress is maybe the wrong word for me.
But I at least was very focused. It was a hour of our lives that I did not think about the Pokemon box. I did not look at other tables to see their progress. I did not look at the timer to see where we were at. I just stayed very focused on the puzzle at hand. It
Okay,
paid off.
good. So hopefully more of those in our future. We'll see.
Yeah, it was really fun. So Cody and I have really been into jigsaw puzzles now, and so I think we've done a few since we've gotten back home.
Oh wow, nice, nice.
Yeah.
We also,
Another little.
yeah.
Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say another exciting thing. This was something that Cody and I just stumbled upon the other day. We were just out running some errands, and we see a little sign on the side of the road that says card show. And so that piqued our interest. We're like, well, surely some Pokemon cards. So we have to go. So we take a sharp turn. We follow these card show signs. We pull up to this parking lot, walk in, and sure enough, there's a bunch of vendors with Pokemon cards, and it was super exciting. I picked up a few cards, and I have to say that now that I've seen the scene. I'm very interested in acquiring the Pokemon box card or cards. Before I just wanted to buy the box. Now I'm like, I actually would like that card as well.
So you have to collect every Pokemon card mentioned in the Pokemon box chapter. I think make a little collection.
I've started. I've
Okay.
started. Yes. Um, I learned a new term that ripping packs. If you buy like a pack that's sealed, you rip it. So we did buy one, oh, what was it, a pack from like 2011, and the guy was like, "Are you guys gonna rip it?" And we did, which we were told is gambling, not investing, but we were there to gamble. It did not pay off. We did not find any big hits in our ripping pack.
Well, at least you tried. You're part of the scene now. So many hobbies.
It was exciting. It was very fun. That's all. Those are all my updates.
Yeah.
Do you want to show your cards?
I don't want to stand up to get them down, but I can admire them on my shelf. So I picked up just a standard Greninja because I needed a Greninja to complete my Froakie Frogadier Greninja. I picked up a Shadowless Charmeleon, but it's just rated a 6. So I did not spend big bucks here. Nothing crazy,
But they are
but
graded.
they are graded.
She's got the slabs.
I got 2 slabs. My Greninja is not graded. The Charmeleon is a 6, and I did get a newer Mew that is a 10, but it's from 2020, so also nothing crazy. But I liked that they were in the slabs, and it's good motivation to now find the big boy.
Right. Should we dive into treasure hunting stuff now?
Yes, yes. It was
Right.
a segment for banter. I brought some banter.
Good banter. My segment is in the news section, but I'm not going to play it because it's not news. But I did want to recap the Angie Murray interview. That's right with you guys.
Yes, that's perfect.
Yeah, so last episode we posted was the interview with Angie Murray, the jewelry designer that created the earrings, the ruby earrings in Chapter 6 Rubies to Wear. So we had a nice conversation with her. She had mentioned a couple things to follow up on that I followed up on here that I want to share real quick. So I guess for people that didn't listen to it, no major take homes, I would say, in terms of my theory going into the interview was Jon requested a specific piece of jewelry having to do with wings or flight based on the design of the ruby earrings that are in Chapter 6, and to me, it didn't seem like that was emphasized at all during the design process between Jon Collins-Black and Angie Murray. Do you guys agree with that?
I still think there could be something to read into or look into. The idea of him kind of pushing the idea of rubies pretty hard right from the get-go, and looking at kind of how that fits in the timeline. If we think that he was pushing for rubies because he wrote the chapter about rubies, or if rubies came first and there's a reason that he needed a chapter about rubies. So that one in my mind is still kind of open to interpretation, and the possibility of kind of holding some significance that he specifically requested rubies.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think in my mind, just because he was looking for some ruby items, it kind of is spelled out pretty clearly in the chapter, but I didn't think about it in your perspective, Cody, if it was a requirement for one of the clues. But I think rereading Chapter 6 would put that in perspective again, so I will do that. Yeah.
I had a couple thoughts.
Mhm.
One, and I think maybe I saw some chatter about this too, is like there also is the potential, like we heard that he first requested a ring from her, which had no wing ties either, but potential for like that initial ring request to almost be like a red herring. Just in his attempt to like make sure nobody had any clues or anything like that. I am totally spacing on the second thing I was just gonna say. Carry on.
So I did pull up the image of the ring. So Angie did mention the Oceania ring design that Jon Collins-Black asked for with the large ruby in it. This is not a ruby. This is what it is. It's not a ruby. But this is the initial design of that ring. So I don't know if you guys have seen that yet.
No, this is the first that I'm seeing of it.
But I'm not really getting a wing motif from this at all. I did want to
No,
investigate it
definitely not.
in case there was something there. And then the second request at the same time was for the Isadora style earrings, which there's a few different versions of the Isadora earrings. Here's one, again not rubies, another red stone, and then these are the ones that we looked at initially that looked more wing-like, I think, in my mind. It was kind of, you're right, Bryn, that maybe it was, he asked for two different things in order to kind of obfuscate that he really wanted the wing-based earrings. I don't know, but anyway, I'm not putting too much stock into it personally.
Yeah.
From the information that we got out of the interview.
Yeah. I think at that point we can't start making those assumptions. We just got to work with what we've got.
Yep.
I did just remember what I was going to say, though, is I think something that is interesting to take into consideration from the chapter is that it was very clear from the book, it was clear from the interview with Angie that her Egyptian heritage is very significant in her jewelry design. And I will say the other commissioned piece in the chapter is also noted as being from that artist's Cleopatra collection. So that could also be something of interest, like the Egyptian connection to both commissioned pieces in the chapter is probably like what I would be taking a deep dive into next, as far as maybe some little goodies that we can glean from the chapter.
Perfect.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, and then I don't know, on the YouTube video, it kind of is a abrupt ending. I just watched it earlier today, but we did stay on the line with Angie for probably another half hour after that interview and just chatting with her. Again, thanks very much to Angie. Check out her website. We posted it in that interview YouTube page. And yeah, she was delightful to talk to, and we had a great conversation.
Yeah, I mean, even outside of the treasure hunt, I would encourage everybody to check out her work, learn more about her, give her a follow. She's definitely very wonderful.
All right, should we dive into horseshoes and hand grenades?
I'm ready.
Bryn, your horseshoes and hand grenades today.
Okay. So, recently, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, Cody and I, we were out on a walk, just local walk, happened to be in some wetlands. And so it just kind of got me thinking a little bit about Pokemon Box, top of mind since we were in wetlands, and that's kind of interest with Pokemon Box, I would say. And we're just walking through and I'm looking at some of the plants. I noticed some lily pads, which of course we have lily pads mentioned in the chapter. And then after a while it hits me. I'm like, well, there's cattails everywhere too. Like that's just a very standard wetland plant. If you were to think of a wetland, I think cattails and lily pads would probably be the top two things that come to mind as far as plants you would expect to see. And so I was thinking about cattails and I'm like, wait a minute. Cattails also is kind of a play on words if you want to think about like a cat tail. And then if we think about Mew, we could think about Mew's tail, because Mew's tail is a very prominent part of Mew's design. And the reason Mew is interesting, if you're not super into the Pokemon box, Jon Collins-Black calls out a elusive 151st Pokemon. He doesn't mention Mew by name, but that would be referencing Mew. So it's kind of one approach you could take on the chapter is that maybe Mew is what we're trying to seek. Maybe like that's somehow related to the destination of where this treasure box is hidden. So when I was thinking wetlands, cattails, I'm like, well, maybe there's something to do, like a clever connection between a cattail and a wetland and Mew's tail specifically. So Mew is both cat and mouse-like. I even see people saying it's maybe somewhat of like a fetus as well. But I think the fact that its name is Mew, cat tail would probably be fair to assume if we're going to kind of associate it with a cat. Another reason I thought tail was a little bit interesting is because in the illustrations of the Froakie and the Greninja in the chapter, he includes a tail on the Froakie illustration, which Froakie doesn't necessarily have a tail in the Pokemon games. You can't see a tail on him. So the addition of a tail seems to be part of the artistic interpretation that is added to these images. So tails was already kind of top of mind for me, which was why this all kind of came together as maybe something to look into with the Pokemon box. So I originally thought that Mew's tail must have some sort of significance when it comes to battle, or it must be like have a lot of power or something that would be very prominent in the significance of Mew's tail in the character itself. So unfortunately, when I was looking into it, it doesn't seem like Mew's tail is like that critical to Mew outside of just being like a really significant design element. Mew can incorporate its tail into battles, but it would primarily use its psychic abilities in a battle. So that didn't really lead me down any path of unveiling additional information that could maybe be location worthy. So then I thought I would look into locations that just had cattail in the name or were named cattail. I would say the closest hits that I got were Cattail Creek in Texas. However, this is west of Houston. I guess I'm certainly not going to be someone to tell you that it has to be within the perimeter of this geographical region that he mentions of their road trip being. But to me, it seems maybe a little suspect that this would be even more west if their final destination was Houston. And then there was also Cattail Creek Campground in Virginia. However, this is south, or sorry, I think it was northeast of Statesville, which would have been their start and end point. So then if he says the road trip is a circle, it doesn't quite make sense that they would like go past their destination, double back to Statesville. So those were the two cattail locations that seemed most promising out of the different ones that I found. But there's other ones to look into if people are interested. So for those reasons, I'm out. I just think it's probably a dead end. Probably more of just a coincidence between wetlands, cattails, mutails.
Lily pads.
I don't know. Lily pads.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad you brought up the fact of the Froakie tail again. That kind of slipped my mind. So that is interesting. Certainly in the Pokemon picture at the end, we see the Mewtwo that has a tail as well, which is correctly part of that character.
Yeah.
Anyway, but not finding any connections beyond that. Yeah, understandable. If there were a couple more tail clues, I think in the text, maybe I'd be a bit more on board. But I just thinking back after reading the chapter many times, I don't recall anything that's specific to a tail.
Yeah. So sorry, it's not very juicy.
That's okay.
But it was exciting in the moment when I thought about cattails in the chapter. So
Sure.
I've got one thing that I just want to bring up because I kind of think I have a different idea of kind of what geographic areas are fair game and what's not. So his exact reading right from the book here said, because of all the precious memories I had of my road trip to Houston, I decided it would be fitting to leave a treasure box not far from some place I had visited along that journey. So when you're thinking about, I guess in my mind at least, when you're thinking about like the scope of that whole journey that's like a quarter of the US, not far from that, in my mind, I would think that like 3-4 hour drive would still be kind of in play relative to the size of that, that whole geographic circle. And I think that, I can't remember whose podcast it was, but they had talked with JCB on one of the podcasts. And I remember his answer making me feel like a lot more confident in that position, that it's, somewhere that's a stone's throw from that circular trip, but not, I wouldn't be like ruling things out that are, on the periphery of that circle.
yeah, no, I definitely agree with you too, that I think you just need to solve the box and that will tell you where to go. So it certainly could be beyond one way or another. I just think there's a lot of people that it's probably most agreed upon that it's kind of within this given perimeter. So that's why I said it that way.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bryn. All right.
Nice.
Should we get into the mailbag?
Mailbag, mailbag, mailbag. We've got mail.
All right, got a couple mailbags today. First one is from Josh that I've been saving for a while just because I think it's interesting. And it's long, so that's why it wasn't in the other mailbag special. Good evening, treasure hunters. Hope this email finds you all well. I stumbled across your podcast on Audible a couple months ago, and I've been listening to all your old episodes and finally caught up to your most recent one. I bought There's Treasure Inside when it came out, but got delayed. Really diving into it until more recently, so fresh eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Your podcast helped me get re-energized with the hunt, and I appreciate y'all's thoughts and theories on your episodes. It definitely makes my 40-minute one-way commute to work more enjoyable. That's good. And give you about 1 day of content for your drive, unfortunately. I recently finished my first pass of the book, and I am currently on my second run-through of the main chapters. I've been more focused on the lion's share box and trying to figure out the larger puzzle rather than focusing on one of the smaller boxes. Go big or go home, I suppose. So some lion's share discussion coming up. I was inspired by your recent podcast episode where you all revisited Chapter 3 and talked about using the chapter to look closer at the Fabergé magnifying glass to discover the tiny symbols that have been photoshopped onto the image. I really enjoyed this approach, and I've been having similar thoughts about using the chapters in order to glean clues from each chapter. During my first pass of the book, I jotted down notes that I thought were relevant or related to particular themes, and I've organized them into a spreadsheet so I can sort and review them based on some commonalities. However, after your episode about the magnifying glass, I've been rethinking my approach, and I feel like I may be on the right track in making sense of the larger hunt. I'm including my new theory with you all below. I'm not on any of the Discord channels or Facebook, so if these connections have been made by others, I apologize for the redundancy. So no apology necessary. I think there's lots of theories out there. All right, theory overview. As I mentioned before, I was originally looking for themes throughout the book that I could begin to weave together to make one cohesive idea. However, now I feel like each chapter is a bit more independent from one another than I originally thought. My new theory is that each chapter will give us one specific piece of the puzzle that we will need in order to paint the larger mural. My running theory for what we'll do with each of these pieces is that they will correspond directly with an aspect of Joy's serenade, which will show us the order in which we need to put the pieces together. I do think it is interesting that there are 46 lines of Joy's Serenade and 23 chapters in part 1. As I glance through, I don't think they will match as cleanly as one chapter pairing with 2 lines of the poem. With this theory, I believe that each chapter has a running theme between the stories he is telling, which will in turn provide a piece to the larger picture. Quote unquote, every chapter has something of value to take from it, a lesson or message that we may apply to our daily lives. I invite you to reflect on them if you'd like. While the puzzle pieces I have found, in my opinion, don't seem super significant yet, I am hopeful that once I get through most of the chapters, that some things will start to make sense. Below, I'm including some of my thoughts on what this could look like for the first couple of chapters. So before I get into that, any comments or questions?
I love the idea of using Joy's Serenade as like our key, or I guess key is probably the best word for kind of decoding how we're supposed to be using the rest of the book, or how to put it back together.
Mm-hmm.
Like you saying, how to put these pieces back together. And I think through interviews that we've seen with Jon Collins-Black since the release of the book, he really doubled down on like, yes, Joy's Serenade is very important and significant. And yeah, I think it's going to be an absolutely critical piece. And so I like this approach.
Yeah, I like the idea of putting individual components of some of the chapters in orienting it in order of Joy's Serenade to make that final mural is, I think, a really interesting approach.
I like it a lot. I like the approach a lot. I'm going to say something that is technically negative, and I don't even want to say it because I'm really excited to hear what's coming next in this one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely the first thing that came to mind because it's kind of this nagging thing in the back of my mind every time that I have a theory that involves every chapter. And it's the party added that JCB added in the introduction where it says, and again, I'm reading here, and almost every chapter in part one of this book offers at least one important detail to help guide you to the location of the largest box. And that has bothered me so much because every time I come up with these theories where everything's linked and like everything's kind of 1-to-1, 23 sections in the chapter. And then I keep thinking of that. And part of me just wants to be like, okay, it's a throwaway line. He didn't really mean it that specifically. And we can use every chapter and get like one thing from every chapter that's of equal weight. But it's definitely something that nags at me when I come up with similar theories. So I wanted to bring it up because it popped into my head. I know it's an immediate kind of strike against it almost, which I hate to do, but I am really excited to hear what's coming next because I've had a lot of similar thoughts, I think.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think that is a really important line, unfortunately. And not to, take away from Josh's theory here at all. Like, I still like the idea of using Joy's Serenade as like a landing point for some of these clues. Maybe it's not every chapter, and maybe the 46 lines to 23 chapters is a coincidence of the day. But I agree with you, Cody, that is a really important thing, and trying to figure out which of the few chapters that don't have clues in them, what those are. And
I actually just had this thought now, which I'm really excited about. He could not be talking like about any of the 1 to 23 chapters. That could be referencing. I know it's not referencing the introduction because he says it elsewhere in the introduction that there could be clues in the introduction. But I know there's a couple other ones. I can't remember if the safety chapter and the acknowledgments, like those are part of part one. So he could be referring to those, and then maybe 1 through 23. Maybe each of those does have a hint. So okay. I'm back on board again. I've come full circle.
Flip flopper. All right. Other parts before I get into some of Josh's more detailed comments. All right, let's dive in. So chapter 1, and I'm already going to disagree with the first line here, but that's okay. Overall, I feel like this chapter in particular is fairly weak on a theme, or at least I have no idea where to go with the theme that I think is there. So I think chapter 1, I don't know if I can name a theme, but I think there's lots of stuff in there. That being said, I think this chapter's theme is quote-unquote beam, B-E-A-M, beam. What to do with that theme, I'm not entirely sure. Similar to y'all, I took a black light to the entire book to see if there would be anything that pops out, but I have yet to find anything that way. I've also thought about the possibility that there being hidden letters / symbols / numbers in the ultraviolet image of the sapphire, but I haven't noticed anything out of place yet. There's also a strong connection to blue in this chapter, which seems significant. I'm including the below quotes items that would get us to the beam theme and some of the references to blue. Quote unquote, his bright blue eyes beamed at me like lasers. Yes, one of my favorite lines. Quote unquote, Steve Wozniak engineered a device he called a blue box. And there's an image from Scotty from Star Trek. Could relate to the famous line, beam me up, Scotty. Quote unquote, if he was going to back Apple with his own funds, the fledgling company with its one underdeveloped product needed to be led by someone with the ability to create and execute a brilliant business blueprint. Image. The image in red shows what our sapphire appears like under ultraviolet light. The image is interesting in that the top and bottom images are mirrored identically with each other. At least it looks that way. Quote unquote, he even has a dazzling cobalt blue mineral named after him. Appropriately, it's called scotiite. So those are all his blue/beam connections. What do you think of that?
I think it's strong. I think just hearing someone call out blue is helpful. I mean, like, you can certainly, like, as you're reading it, it's like you keep hearing blue, but if you just distill it down to blue and beams, it does feel pretty strong to just say, like, these are two big takeaways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had done some research actually a couple months ago. By research, I mean 10 minutes of searching, but I was looking at all of the beams and their names in the Star Trek universe. Like whether there's a, tractor beam, which of those phaser, things like that, which of those beams are blue. And I didn't really come up with anything too interesting. I'll try to pull up that graphic at a later date, but there was a nice graphic online if you search for Star Trek beam colors. Somebody's like laid out a nice image of all of these, so.
I mean, I think with the blue theme, this is probably just obvious, but like we have the chapter's called the 120 karat sapphire. So, I mean, like in chapter 1, blue, very fair. Like, is he calling out blue to just really emphasize sapphire? I mean, it kind of goes back to what we're talking about with the rubies in chapter 6 as well. So then we have red. These.
Right.
I just think the colors are good. I know this was like when we talked about it at the time, it was kind of like, well, obviously, like these things all have colors. They're treasures. They're, supposed to be visually appealing. Mm-hmm. But when you also just look like at the cover of the book and it has the X and these different colors in the different corners of the X, like there's definitely something to it, which I know sounds dumb to say, but yes, I think the color connections will be really big.
Yeah, it seems like color takes a front seat. The color themes kind of take a front seat in the first few chapters, and then they kind of fall off in my mind. Latter half of the book, not too much. I mean, the color of the candles, there was a kind of a color theme in George Washington's Jelly Glass chapter, I felt, or at least a mention of. But then in the other chapters, I think it's more difficult to put a finger on. And remember, Josh is not saying that the theme is blue. He's saying the theme is beam, is what he's taken away from that. Mm-hmm. Because of the Scotty and the other couple things he mentioned. But anyway,
for sure,
I like having a peek into someone else's mind on what they're coming to in terms of clues in this chapter. And then he also mentions a possible connection to Joy's Serenade for chapter 1. I find it interesting that Mike Markula and Mike Scott both worked for semiconductor companies. Could this be a reference to the conductor from Joy's Serenade?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. All right, chapter 2. 100 gold rings of Tuyet Nuyet.
Just so I can gauge my commentary. Are we going through all the chapters?
No. Just
okay, I was going to say, I need to really rein in.
Just the first 2, and then we'll be done. It's just to look into somebody else's approach here and try to glean ideas off of that, which I enjoy doing. Okay.
I will take all the chapters I can get. I just wanted to understand what was happening here.
Yep. Just to chapter 2, last part. All right. Overall, I feel Overall, I feel as though the theme of this chapter is quote-unquote research. There are references throughout the stories about the significance of research and history. Yes, this theme is prevalent in many chapters, but there are specific references to conducting research that I think are significant enough to pinpoint this theme to this particular chapter. It may be indicating that we need to research the information in this chapter more closely to determine if there is anything that is off or incorrect, which may in itself then be a clue. I'm including some quotes to support this theme. Quote unquote, I walked to the student library and using the old classic Dewey Decimal System, searched for books that would give me statistics on careers. I think this may be significant and we may need to use the Dewey Decimal System to glean our clue. Quote unquote, I called the number listed. Reference to call number like a library. Quote unquote, as a reporter, she honed her skills at research and analysis. Before she could report the news, she had to be well versed and fully researched. She was soon recognized by her colleagues for her tenacity and attention to detail. Quote unquote, Tuyet absorbed herself in learning art history and she never let up. Her years of intense study had prepared her. A lotus plant is seeded and takes root under waters that are typically muddy and dark, where the blueprint for the plant is prepared. Another reference to blueprint, but what does it mean? And then there are some strange lines separating parts of this chapter out, which isn't common elsewhere in the book. I started thinking maybe the numbers included in this section could relate somehow to the Dewey Decimal System. 300 years, 1 million, 1 in every 1,000 people, 2,000 temples, 4 times the size. Josh says more of a coincidence of the day, but the first 3 numbers, 311, were used to reference books on statistics in the Dewey Decimal System, which was referenced in the research on jobs. Quote unquote, their royal lineage was codified according to their clever and meticulous branding. Quote unquote, a pink lotus signals that there is important historical significance. In doing some research, this is Josh's commentary, in doing some research, I can't find that this is true in Buddhism. I have read that the pink lotus symbolizes the Buddha himself and enlightenment, but I haven't found it to mean historical significance. And then the possible connections to Joy's serenade, or simply follow shimmering circles of gold. So I think he's referencing the rings of Tuyet Nuyet for there. Mm-hmm. Sorry for the long email. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts, and feel free to share this on the podcast if you feel it might generate some discussion. End of email. Sorry, I told you it was a long one.
No, I'm very happy he took the time to write that in. I think it's really helpful. I think this is kind of taking a broader approach to what he's saying, but I think this approach is probably the most favorite that I've heard because it feels somewhat approachable. And I think as I've been working on Pokemon Box and you dissect not only every single line, but every single word, you get into letter. It's just like, it feels so overwhelming, and that's just a few pages. And so when you think about the lion's share, it feels incredibly overwhelming how you would be able to make these connections between all the chapters and all the content and all the things. There's just so many things to try to connect. And so I think, like, with the examples that he's giving tied to potential clues, the way that he presents it feels very like, yes, that all makes sense. And it feels very obtainable. Certainly not easy, but it feels like there is at least a way that you could approach solving this puzzle that you can kind of grasp. Whereas before it felt just so chaotic to me. Yeah. And I think the strongest part of that is him being able to then tie it back to lines of Joy's serenade, which would then ultimately be like our key, like I said. So overall, I really like this.
Yeah, I do like that he's creating a way to break it down into smaller chunks. So I want to make sure I'm understanding kind of his approach correctly. So what he's doing is he's taking each of the 23 chapters, basically diagnosing one theme for each of the chapters, and then trying to pinpoint that theme either the theme itself or some similar language that he used to generate the theme, pinpoint that in Joy's Serenade.
Mm-hmm.
So the output of that then would be, I'm assuming he's using Joy's Serenade to put it in the correct order. So then he has an order of themes.
Right.
And then I guess I'd be interested to discuss or think about, what would the ultimate output be? You're going to have a series of 23 words and probably, I don't know, do you think maybe the 23 words describe a geographical area? And then in that, if it's just things that describe a geographical area, what's the point in putting them in a specific order? I don't think you're going to put them in a specific order to like get a sentence that makes any sense, because you're not going to have some of those filler words as themes. So I don't know. I'm just thinking it through. Like I said, I like the idea of kind of creating your own lanes to break it down into smaller pieces in one way or another. I think there's still some things to solve here. One thing that it brought up that I just looked into while you were talking that I found especially interesting is the frequency of the word blueprint in the text.
Mm-hmm.
He uses that a handful of times. JCB does. I find that interesting.
How many times does he use blueprint versus roadmap?
I think I saw at least 4 instances of blueprint. I don't know. That seems like a 1, maybe 2 times in a book thing, not 4 evenly spread out through a book.
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
I'm sorry to read too much into it because it could just be a word he likes, but
yeah,
I don't know. It seems like a very specific word in a treasure hunt for to be appearing frequently.
Agreed. Yeah, I like the road map theory still. Like, let's say it is a series of 23 words that he comes up with. That does seem like enough to be able to narrow in, especially if you're following a roadmap, make a plan, right?
Yeah, I do like that.
You might be able to put these in order that makes sense. Beam, for example, if you look at laboratories or universities that do laser research, famous for laser research, you find the next university connected to that. I don't know what the third word's going to be. I feel like there's merit to that sort of approach. If you get
I do like that
20 some odd clues to actually lay out on a map for cities or places in a city that are known for a particular keyword.
I'd be especially interested if it was something like that. And when you get to the end, each of those kind of landmarks geographically that's described by the theme in order, if they were like similarly spaced, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like each time you get to one, it's like a node and you're looking in like a certain radius around it for the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels like very doable and like from the creating a treasure hunt side of things, and then also solvable on the side. I like that idea. I like that a lot, actually.
Right. Let us move along. Lots of food for thought. That's good. All right. Let me see if I have the next one from Lewis. Hello, TTI Unofficial. Did you get this information out to the community? Yes, I can. Back in 1996, there was a treasure hunting computer game with $1 million prize called Treasure Quest. I was a huge fan and player of this time. This game is steeped in controversy. Most specifically, the winner of the game was apparently named P. Dresden. This person was never on any of the message boards and was basically a ghost. Some players think the company faked the winner and ended the game early on purpose to avoid the payout. P. Dresden is an anagram for end prize. And then he gives us a Wikipedia link. Treasure Quest parentheses video game Wikipedia. So if you guys want to check that out, please do. Anyway, the 2 secrets to winning this game involved collecting 10 famous quotes from famous people that were contained in the game and explaining how the quotes were connected. One of the 10 quotes required to win the game was from Henry David Thoreau. The other secret to winning the game was that you had to discover that only certain areas of the game were accessible based on the phases of the moon. In order to trick the game, you had to change the date on your computer to correspond with the necessary phases of the moon. Crazy, huh? Just to be clear, I do not think this is likely, but I do think it's worth mentioning since the calendar is such a huge image in the book. I also find it weird that JCB picked two pages from Thoreau's journal. A few coincidences here. What if the treasure boxes are only accessible physically during certain months of the year, like in the computer game? I think this is highly unlikely, but worth mentioning since so many connections to the treasure, because there are so many connections to the Treasure Quest community computer game. End of email. Anyway, I want to read this just because I like the learning about some of the treasure hunt history. As we're doing this, I had not heard of this one before. So that's pretty awesome that certain areas of the game were accessible only in certain times or certain days based on the phases of the moon.
That very much reminds me of like I think it was an iPhone game, like very, very early first generation iPhone games. And you'd like accrue coins over time slowly. And you could go into the settings and just like change the date on your phone to like 2050 and go back into the game and have like 1 million coins. I remember doing that.
So
Yeah, I really like the idea. I mean, Jon Collins-Black has obviously created a very original hunt. However, we know that he was also involved with the Force Fen hunt, and so that's something that he would have enjoyed previously, is like inquiring, looking into learning about these treasure hunts. And I think if you are creating your own treasure hunt, you're also just going to do the research of like what has been done before. And so I think, yes, he has created something very original, but I think he has also just simply had to have gotten inspiration from past treasure hunts as well. So, like, yes, these could just be coincidences, but I also think like he very well could have picked up, oh, maybe the moon is a good idea for including because of this, or, I think he certainly has gathered this inspiration along the way.
agreed. Yeah, even if it's subconscious. If you are doing a treasure hunt, you probably have done the research to learn about the history. It's interesting that I don't know if I've heard any of the interviews where he's mentioned researching other treasure hunts besides Forest Fence Hunt, which he participated heavily in, right? So maybe that's a omission on purpose. I don't know. All right. Third email, also from Lewis, but a different Lewis and spelled differently. I've been wondering how you're able to do text searches in the book. I have a physical book and the digital versions from Apple Books, although the Apple version lets me do a small amount of copy and pasting text. No matter what I type in for search, even a word right on the page that I'm looking at, I don't get any result. So this is just a practical question. So yeah, the way that I am doing the text searches right now is I did end up purchasing the ebook from Taylor and Baker Publishing Company. That's the publisher, one of the publishers of There's Treasure Inside. It's full price, so it's a tough pill to swallow if you've already purchased the physical book, which I have a copy of the physical book as well. If you do go the route of purchasing the ebook from Baker and Taylor, you have to, the only way you can read it that I've found is on Adobe Digital Editions, which is a digital rights manager software, so you can't do anything with it. So I can't even copy and paste text out of that ebook, but there is a word search function. So that's kind of the value that I found. The other benefit of getting that ebook is getting the high quality digital images. So when we did the Appalachian Trail box, for example, episode, the images work from the ebook because they're a lot higher resolution than the print version. So just something to think about. But yeah, great question. I don't know if I've mentioned that specifically, but the Baker and Taylor ebook, which you can only read on Adobe Digital Editions, so it's pretty annoying. But there is a text search ability on that software. And it's good. It can find words even if there's hyphens and things like that somehow. So that's how I found the hidden message on the title page of, of the
It's
book.
actually too good at finding things.
Yeah, it's too good. It finds stuff that's not even visible, but it's in the background. All right, that's all I've got for Mailbag. Anything else on that topic?
I would just emphasize one more time, and I think you made this clear, but you do have to jump through a few software hoops to like get to the point where you can even do the word search. So you're going to want some level of tech savviness. I'm thinking like of my parents right now. If we directed them to do this, they would not be able to. So
it's at your risk. Yeah, it's a little bit. It's very clunky. Let's say it's not like this email you a PDF of the book. It's not distributable at all. So it has to download to Adobe. That's specific to your computer. So it's pretty annoying. Not highly recommended, I would say. All right, Discord detectives time. Cody, you're our Discord detectives today.
I'm not sure how I want to go about this one because it's going to be a little bit of a hodgepodge, no matter what I do. So I kind of want to. This one I was excited about because it built on some things that we had previously talked about. So I want to touch on some of those things that we'd previously talked about real quick first to refresh our memories. The first big one is the butterfly theme that we kind of had decided was like one of these main things that we feel very confident in because of the butterfly on the copyright page, and see previous episodes to hear more about that. But that's one of our big obvious themes. Let's see here. So building off of that, one thing that I had found that I can't remember if we had talked about it together before or not. Oh gosh, where did it go?
Stalling time. Cody can look at his computer.
Thank you. We've almost got enough recording of you singing to do a full album at this point.
Worst selling album of all time.
So I know Britt and I at least have talked about this in person. I'm not sure if we talked about it on the podcast yet or not. But the idea of the butterfly maiden as part of one of the Hopi cultural things. So I'll read it straight from the Wikipedia page. The Polikmana, or butterfly maiden, is a kachina or spirit being in Hopi mythology. Every spring, she dances from flower to flower, pollinating the fields and flowers and bringing life-giving rain to the Arizona desert. She is represented by a woman dancer at the yearly butterfly dance, a traditional initiation rite for Hopi girls. The rite takes place in late summer before the harvest to give thanks to Polikmana for her spirit dance. So that's something that I think we were at least aware of around the same time as we discovered kind of the big butterfly theme. So that, in my mind, was one of the main connections between the big butterfly theme and the big Hopi theme. Mm-hmm. Big bridge between those two things. So some other things that I liked about the butterfly maiden in general, connections to, I think I just said some of this, but it's just in my notes. Hopi in general, butterfly, flowers, pollination, seasons, and solstices. Ooh, and then also, I forgot to read this part at the bottom, I think. This is something I went off on a tangent on for a little bit. Let me find it here. Blake's not here to do my stalling music.
You were so slow that Blake just had to leave.
The Polikmana Mons is a mountain on Venus and is named for the butterfly maiden. So I thought that was also a nice kind of connection between some of like the space solar things that we've talked about, and then our butterfly and Hopi themes. I got excited about the Mountain on Venus thing and started looking into that. And it's not that special because there is a million mountains on Venus, and they all have
You're
names just
inspired by that, but not my Maxwell coincidence of the day last time. Mons Maxwell.
I was trying to think of what was the other outer space mountain that we had talked about.
That was 36,000 feet high.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so that's kind of the first bit of background information to set this up. And then the second bit is I Left My Heart in San Francisco. That song, which I was excited about, and I kind of bought into that one a little bit. I think Bryn had talked about it a few episodes ago. I know that it's something that was popular on the Discord for a little while, whereas the song lyrics that have some like very, very close, like similar writing excerpts between the book and the song lyrics. And we even went as far as to think of like other San Franciscos that are not in San Francisco. And I'd pitched the idea that I literally Googled live during the episode and did very little research on it, but there was the San Francisco Mission in Florida. Okay, so that is what was kind of pinging around in my head as I found this next thing that was very exciting for me.
I just had to reground myself in what segment we're on. This is a Discord detective?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's
good question.
I know. I'm sorry. This is really more of a horseshoes and hand grenades, but I kind of did this work on the front end and then got really excited about it, and then saw some other people had already like made a similar connection in Discord, a handful of other people. So it's going to circle back to being like, hey, this was on Discord before I found it. So that's how I'm going to call it, the Discord detectives. But
okay,
continuing on. All right, here's another little paragraph I'm going to read directly from the interweb. The Hopi ceremonial calendar is structured around two main seasons, the Katsina season and the non-Katsina season. The Katsina season, which begins in the winter solstice, is a period when Katsnam, or spirit beings, are believed to be present among the Hopi people and participate in ceremonies. The non-Katsina season, encompassing the warmer months, is a time when the Katsnam return to their home on the San Francisco peaks.
That's nice.
It turns out, there's San Francisco peaks in Arizona, literally called the San Francisco peaks, where these like Hopi spirit beings, part of their mythology is that for half the year, that's where they go to rest, is the San Francisco peak. So it's like this massive connection between, I mean, if you have to make a couple of assumptions and buy into a couple of things first, but if you are already working with the information that I had in my head when I found this, I was very excited because it's like a massive connection between Hopi and San Francisco and more kind of butterfly maiden stuff. So I was really excited about that. I went back in the Discord and used the search function to see if anyone had come up with it yet. And no one had really made that connection between the San Francisco peaks in Arizona and the I Left My Heart in San Francisco Tony Bennett song. But there were a couple of people who had mentioned the San Francisco peaks in general as like part of Hopi culture. So I'm calling it the Discord detectives.
Can I interrupt for 1 second and Cody Joshua here?
And what, me?
Cody Josh, who was our first mailbag, and put a little bit of wet blanket on it.
Yeah, I'm about to too, so.
Oh, you are? Okay. But the Tony Bennett song, I think we felt like was related to the Pokemon box. Okay. Sorry if that's where you're going. My bad.
It was one of my cons at the end. But
okay.
I came home very excited about this when I first found it. And then Bryn tried to convince me that there's still some validity to it, even though I said that I'm 100% a separation of part one, part two type person. And this kind of violates that.
But certainly there's a San Francisco connection in the book with the Loma art and the World's Fair.
Yeah. So I think I think maybe I have some pieces here that I don't fully believe are in the right spot, but they're still interesting pieces. And maybe if you kind of reshuffle, like you say, there's other connections to San Francisco. I mean, there were people who were saying like they think it's in San Francisco. And at first it seems crazy, but I don't know, the San Francisco peaks things kind of is very interesting. So
Mhm.
I think the big takeaway is that a significant part of Hopi culture was the San Francisco peaks. And I think that I think there's a decent chance that plays a role in something here.
Yeah, especially when you think about the San Francisco peaks and like the position of the moon rising and setting over the peaks based on different times of the year. I like it a lot. I like definitely that it, has a connection very, very forward to San Francisco, which, is kind of clever in itself. So, um, I did want to give the disclaimer that the part one, part two connections where I said it still could be relevant. I was just saying that I think the solve approaches of the part two boxes will kind of all come together and be applicable to the lion share solve, which is like why uh, it would be expected. And another reason it would be expected that the lion's share would be solved after the part two boxes. Like if we're working with wordplay in Pokemon box, I think the wordplay would also kind of be applicable to what he's doing to lion's share as well, as an example.
Yeah, you brought up kind of some of like the solar calendar stuff. So there was some other connections to that too as well. So I'll read one other excerpt here. The alignment of the sunset from the peaks, that being the San Francisco peaks, to Hopi villages on Black Mesa is used to calculate the winter solstice, signifying the beginning of a new year with a new planting season and new life. So there's also connections to that kind of like solar calendar idea.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, I think there's a lot uh, that really ties in with if you think about again the significance and the size of the Hopi calendar in the book. I think it's pretty clear that it will obviously be something that is very critical.
Right. I will do one quick one that's just been on the back burner forever. If we're done with that topic, sorry.
Yes.
I think I've already written it down, but I think there's some Katsina or Kachina research heading my way. I'm gonna work on that. So we might have a new horseshoes and hand grenades next week.
Do you have a lead on something?
No. I just want to do some research, and there's a way to connect different Kachinas with chapters in the book or something. I just don't have a sense. I know there's hundreds of Kachinas, but I don't have a sense of how diverse they are. So anyway,
I've done a fair bit of reading into Hopi stuff. I feel like whenever I'm like at a loss of what to do next, I keep kind of reverting back to just like doing more Hopi research. There's kind of like a surprisingly few resources for like good quality Hopi research.
Blake wants to dive in because of the butterfly maiden bee on a pistol connection.
Probably.
Yeah. Like my favorite line of the book. All right. I'll just toss in one more Discord detective if that's all right. Cody.
Approved.
This one actually came from Facebook, which is the first time I've ever. There's like a Treasure Inside Facebook page with like 7,000 people or so. That was in my recommended Facebook groups to join. So I'm not going to join it, so you guys can't find me. But I can lurk in there. Let's see. So it comes with an image, and it's something that we've discussed before, but it seems so obvious. It seems so obvious that we hadn't, at least I hadn't found this before. So we had talked before about looking at the title page and the cover of the book that's included with all of the ebooks, right? So this is kind of Appalachian Trail related. And the book jacket and things like that. We know that there's pieces of the map that are on the cover of the book and the book jacket and the introductory section to part 2. So certainly we had seen this. We'd seen the Go Fetch. We'd seen the basket of apples on the title page before. But what is mentioned here by Austin was got to Go Fetch on one picture and a 76 feet on the other. I think we had pointed this out before, that there is something that is in the cover page, but not in the Appalachian Trail map anymore, which is this little figure here. And he says it says 76 feet, which seems so obvious. You just have to flip it over. But look at that. 76 feet. I'll zoom in.
That's wild. Yeah, I totally did not pick up on that at all.
Which is something that may have been in an older version of the Appalachian Trail map or was added into the version that was included on the book. But there were differences that we had seen within those, but this translation that Austin says here, 76 FT, seems very clear to me, actually.
Yeah, that's a really great find. I guess my initial reaction is that something that was removed from the Appalachian Footpath box and accidentally ended up here versus it getting added on as a clue.
Agree.
That's pretty wild, though.
Does that have meaning to anybody? 76 feet. And it's right next to the compass, right? So maybe it's a boots on the ground clue that did not get removed. It's possible. Anyway, I thought that was a cool little nugget.
Yeah.
That got pointed out on the Facebook group there.
I mean, the 76 feet is kind of interesting. I mean, we had the oh my gosh, I don't want to reveal how little I know about this, but there was like a elevation.
36,000 foot view.
Well, no, there was high point listed, and then there was like an elevation, right? Or assumed elevation.
Yeah,
but
that's
also
a guess.
with feet, we also have the 2 feet icons in the upper left-hand corner that kind of have like the dark heels. A lot of people think those are the tar heels. But anyways, if you think feet and feet, maybe there's something clever there. Yeah, I clearly did not pick up on the 76 feet. That's a great find.
Yeah, super cool. All right. Should we wrap up with our coincidence of the day? Bryn.
All right. If you want to pull up the picture, that would be wonderful. So recently I was at a local bookstore and I was really excited to find this Lewis Carroll's Jabberwocky lip balm. Read my lip balm. So if you are in the Pokemon box, you know that there is a reference to Through the Looking Glass. And so Through the Looking Glass, we of course have the classic Lewis Carroll Jabberwocky poem. So this is something I was very just excited to stumble upon. A little coincidental that it was so perfect for the work that I was doing at the time, and highly recommend. Usually these like gimmicky lip balms are just like usually pretty bad, but this one's nice. It's got like a little eucalyptus mint situation going on, and it's good. High quality.
Is this an ad?
This episode is brought to you by
No.
Use our discount code.
Yeah, no, it was fun to stumble upon, I will say that.
Right. Are we doing more coincidences?
Cody had one too, yeah?
We can if you want, or we can save it for next time. I'm
No,
down for
let's
either
do
one.
it. If you
right.
do one, I'll do one.
Okay. Are you pulling up my? Oh, you're giving it away. Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. So I was looking into stamps. Long story short, I was looking at stamps, got interested in stamps. Here's a stamp as shown on the screen right now. This is a 1977 postage stamp, Scott number 1708, of a Hopi pot with what I think, I can't get this verified anywhere, or I haven't seen any verification anywhere, but I think that's a butterfly maiden on the pot. So I thought that was very exciting. I actually did quite a bit of research into stamps and just couldn't really find enough other stamp related things to kind of like keep the engine going on that idea. But I thought that this one was just like right on the nose. So I thought this is quite a coincidence. And then kind of two other things that came up while I was looking into it that are kind of also pretty coincidental. The artist who made this stamp was named Ford Ruthling. And in 1993, I guess inducted would be the right word. He was inducted as a Santa Fe living treasure, which is like this thing that recognizes important people, but it's called the Santa Fe living treasures, and he was inducted into that.
I don't know if I can think of a possible higher honor than to be called a living treasure. That is so dramatic.
That can be add it to your bucket list. That can be a goal of yours, is to become a living treasure.
Do they get a giant check?
Yeah.
That's number one on my bucket list, is to win a giant check. If anybody has any leads on how to win, let me know.
Any sort of competition that has a giant check as a reward, we'll find a way to win it. The last thing I wanted to touch on that I was interested in as I was looking at stamps is kind of their connection with UV light, because there's can be used in stamps, and I found that the first phosphorescent stamps were created in 1963. And did a little bit of looking into that, and it seems like sometimes parts of the UV section are omitted, and that's something that can be interesting to stamp collectors, and a few other things like that. Lots of little coincidences. That's like a little 3-part coincidence, but I really liked the stamp and was really hoping that led to more, because again, that just felt like right on the nose to have a stamp, Hopi jar, butterfly maiden. Couldn't make more connections though.
Did I miss how you started researching stamps?
Oh, that was the out of the blue idea.
It's a new hobby. This is our hobbies episode.
No, I don't remember exactly how. I just it literally started with nothing, just being like, I wonder if there's these like connections to stamps. I guess it just, in my mind, almost like stamp collecting and treasure hunting seems like similar to me in a way. And I remember also thinking that it was like, I didn't really know how stamps works, but I figured there might be a way to like get some geographical information. I don't know, I guess vaguely in my mind, stamps are like travel from place to place. And I don't know if they're like minted somewhere tied to something, but they seem like very potentially tied to geographical areas. So
fair enough.
Yeah, that one's one that definitely started with the stamp. And then I found that specific one and got really excited, and then couldn't really find any other connections.
Nice. All right.
Your turn, Blake.
Yay. I also have imagery.
Ooh.
This is us at Bandelier when you came to visit New Mexico. We did some tourism. Multi-pronged coincidence here too, because they have the little, I forget what they're called, Cody. What's
Kivas?
this? The Kiva, and then like the multi-room buildings. Then we had talked about this before because of the past and future box, actually, where within the square of O's on the right of the word search, Froggy, I believe, had decoded, or somebody and Froggy reported it as reward at interior wall being unscrambled from there. And so we had talked about these Kivas before, so we visited some.
Yes.
I totally forgot about that. That's a great callback.
And then we saw a rattlesnake, like in real life. This is just a stuffed one at the gift shop.
The real one was significantly bigger too.
Yes,
And it
was.
rattled at us,
Yes, it did.
which I will say was very discouraging for future boots on the ground endeavors, because you always think, like, when you go to someplace new in the country, you're like, oh, these things, they exist, but you don't actually come across them. And then to actually see a rattlesnake rattling at you right there was just like gross. If I have to go to a new part of the country, how do I know I'm not just gonna like lift up a log and something's gonna come attack me?
Are you lifting up a lot of logs and
I don't know. Just an example.
Then
And
in
we
the
have
gift
a
shop, we
butterfly.
have a purple butterfly on the. It's not Hopi, it's Zuni pottery in this case, but it was a good coincidence of the day to see the purple butterfly on a piece of pottery here.
When we were out hiking around, there actually was a lot of monarch butterflies, though. I was surprised to see, and specifically monarch butterflies, down in like a hot desert-y area like that.
All
To be
come
clear.
together.
to be clear, this does not count as our first boots on the ground. This just
No,
happened spontaneously. We were
No,
not
no. We weren't
specifically searching for
We
something.
weren't searching for anything. It was just a tourist destination.
Because we're also, I think by the time we go boots on the ground, there's gonna be some excitement built around it. And I don't.
Oh
wanna,
yeah, everybody's gonna know.
Oh yeah.
Long-awaited boots on the ground. All right,
Yes.
that's an episode. Thanks everybody. Have a good night.
Searching for clues, let's find you.